how does asking really good fact-finding questions influence objections from the client? So does the fact that you're asking really good questions and uncovering a lot of good information reduce the objections you're going to get?
It may not reduce it, but what it will do is it will alleviate the pain points when you get to that point in the conversation. So you can head a lot of that off at the pass. By asking good fact-finding questions, you're going to really get a better feel and an understanding of the customer's business and of their pain points and of what they're looking to achieve, and also you'll be able to understand what their needs analysis is. I mean, what are the gaps in their process, and ultimately you're going to utilize that whenever you're overcoming any objections that you field. Now, my theory is this. All objections boil down to one thing, and it's really lack of belief. Because if you were able to show a return on investment and you're able to utilize the right data, you're able to show them everything that they said that they needed to see in order to make an informed decision, and they're still not ready to do that, it's really about lack of belief. So why don't they believe? Now, they're going to steer you in the right directions. I mean, they'll tell you, hey, I've got to talk to my partner. I've got to review this. I've got, and especially like in an RFP process. I mean, obviously there is a process built in around this, and they have to do their due diligence to look at all vendors. So there are some legitimate reasons why some of these types of things can be pushed. But again, the more you know, absolutely, knowledge is power in this equation. And the more that you've invested in getting to understand the business and getting to know the person that you're talking to or the people that you're engaging at this client, the more likely that, number one, that you'll be trusted in these situations or that they'll want to do business with you. But also when they give you objections, you'll be able to overcome them because you'll have the ammunition based on the conversations that you've had. Be like, sure, I understand that you're saying that you need to look at this next year or next month or whatever the case may be, but when we first spoke, you indicated how pressing this was, how much money you're losing because of this gap in process. How did the priorities shift that made that not as much of a priority today? And it's okay to get very pointed with your responses sometimes because, again, you've spent a lot of time with this client, most likely, and you've spent a lot of time getting to know their business and understanding where they are and where they want to go. So I think it's important at that point that, yes, you absolutely use what you've gleaned in these questions in order to either head some of these objections off at the pass and or to make sure that you can utilize that information to overcome the objection and understand why they don't believe today. Now, the other part of that too is that if you spend enough time talking to clients in a certain industry, you can start to really spot very similar objections. You'll get similar objections throughout some of these different clients that you'll talk to. And so, I find that when you do that, you can start to utilize that information to your advantage. So if you know that a lot of these customers will push back because it's their busy season and they just don't have time to look at it, or they're doing budget, they're tapped out for this year and they don't have any more money, you can kind of head that stuff off of the pass and say, hey, based on when do you do budgeting? Ask them that point blank earlier in the conversation and find out when they do budgeting, when's their fiscal year run, because if they're done spending money for this year, well, maybe you have a way to make the expenditure hit next year, or you can make a case for why they should budget for your product for next year. So there's a lot of different ways that you can pivot based on what you see, based on the conversations that you're having with clients today and how you take that into your next conversation. So definitely, absolutely use that to your advantage, because a lot of times in different industries, you may get pushback that you've gotten intel from a different client that's a competitor of theirs or very similar in nature that you can use to your advantage when you're overcoming those objections. So yes, absolutely, you're going to utilize the information you learn in fact-finding later in the objections. You may be able to head some off at the pass. You may be able to make that part of your recommendation so that you can not hear that objection, but you're also going to be a lot more informed when you face some of these objections.